welcome to week 6 of FYE 140. This is actually my favorite unit because it's called Cultural Awareness and Community Context. And this is going to be the place where you're going to really put your voice out there about an issue that matters to you as not just a student, but as a person. So same as always, we have our objectives and activities, readings and resources, which are very, very important this week, which they are every week, but especially this week, because you're going to be reflecting on something that you watch and read in here, and that's going to be mentioned in the discussion board. Of course, please make sure you're doing your mind taps, reading, and activities, as those are a major part of your grade. And the week 6 activity. In order to fully understand the importance of this unit, you need to take part in the activity. So don't start the discussion board or the assignment until doing this. In the discussion board, it reminds you about the importance of the activity, but it says Hakeem's mentor tells him to write authentically but inclusively. It says that can be hard to define. What does inclusive writing mean to you? Share an example from your background, family traditions, language, or community experiences. How have these shaped the way you express yourself authentically? And in a response to your peers, ask a respectful question that shows curiosity about their experience or offer a connection from your own life. So going back to the readings and resources, as I mentioned before, you're going to want to think about what is written in these readings, but also what is available in the actual videos. So the videos focus a lot on the editorial component, which is what your assignment is going to be. However, persuasive writing, which is in the textbook, is going to discuss how you can take a position or an action on a certain topic, and that's going to align a lot with writing authentically. So you might want to think about what you were told in your readings and resources when it comes to inclusive writing, but also what it just means to you. If someone was to say to you, write inclusively about your culture or write inclusively about your background, what would that mean to you? So you're going to want to not just rely on what was told to you in the readings and resources, but bring in your own personal experiences as well. Now, the Unit 6 assignment is very important as well because in Unit 7, you're going to be taking the same assignment and reworking it a bit. So you want to make sure that you get this done. But you're going to be completing a letter to the editor. Now, newspapers, magazines, blogs, websites, there's usually a portion where people respond to different topics that were discussed perhaps that week, month prior, years prior, and it's a way for the public to put their ideas out there. So think about an issue locally to you that affects your community and one that you care about. Write a persuasive letter to the editor. So it's an editorial, expressing your view on the issue and a proposed call for action. It says to support your ideas, use personal experience and logical and respectful reasoning. Your voice should reflect both your cultural perspective and awareness of your audience. So we've talked about that a lot over the past few terms, or the past few units, I should say, how we incorporate our audience into the conversation so that we are focusing on our intended group, but also other people who can appreciate what we have to say. So your audience is going to be the people who would be reading this editorial, but also the people who are also interested in this topic, or perhaps are interested in making positive change. And if we're persuading them and trying to get them to agree with us or join us, then this letter is going to need to persuade them to do that. So it's important that you keep all of these ideas in mind. You can format it as a blog post, a newspaper article, or a traditional letter. Keep in mind that you want to be descriptive. So if you're talking about something specifically within your community that others would not be aware of, perhaps rehabilitation of a certain playground, or perhaps an issue with the road on a certain street, be descriptive. If we don't live in that area, we won't know what you're talking about. Same way if someone's reading this. If it's a national newspaper, they're not going to know what's happening in your town unless they have visited there or live there themselves. So you want to provide them with as much description as possible. Think back to the rhetorical themes we've discussed previously, like ethos, pathos, and logos. How can we make them logically understand what we're saying? How can we make them feel emotionally connected to it? But in addition, how can we make ourselves sound credible? And if you do include any outside resources, which you are supposed to, they must come from the post-university library database, and they need to be valid sources. So it's one thing to talk about the issue, but it's another thing to add proof. So make sure that those resources that you include align with what you're discussing. They don't necessarily have to support your stance. You can use something that goes against what you're saying, and you can use that to argue why they are wrong and why their opposing viewpoint is not credible or helpful to your own point of view, but they need to come from the library's database collection. When you submit it, as always, make sure you take a look at the rubric. Did you include an issue in the position? Did you have a reasoning and a very important point as to why this call to action is necessary? Did you include personal experience or cultural perspective? Did you pay attention to the grammar, style, and tone and the formatting of those sources in APA style writing? And did you hit the required length, which needs to be 2 to 3 pages in length? And when we come up with these lengths for your assignments, it's because we have looked at what's required and deemed that in 2 to 3 pages, you should be able to not just answer all of these points, but to do so with enough space. So you may be able to answer everything that's asked of you in one page, but you're not doing it thoroughly. So that's where the page count comes up. So do the 2 to 3 pages. Think about what you're saying and look at what you've written afterwards as an outsider and say, if I wasn't the person writing this, or I wasn't the person who was interested in this, would I feel that they're doing an effective job trying to get me to go to this? So be sure that you upload it on the APA style template. So you're going to have a title page, you're going to have your references page, you're going to have the 2 to 3 pages, which are in the body. So remember, the 2 to 3 pages do not count your title and your references page. It's 2 to 3 pages of original writing. Ensure that you have in-text citations. So when you are utilizing that research in your paper, it needs to be clear to the reader where it is appearing. And when you do your reference, since it's coming from the library's database collection, make sure that you have the DOI and web address format if it's a journal article, or a permalink so that your instructor can see it as well. So take some time. Think about what you want to write about. There's a lot of great things out there that need attention brought to them. However, you want to choose one that you feel confident enough that you can talk about and really appeal to readers. So you can always go back into previous units. Look at the topics we discussed when we were thinking critically about writing. Look about what we were focusing on when we were thinking, how can we ethically use outside sources? Because it's not just citing them, but it's making sure that when they're incorporated, they're used effectively. Don't just put the research in your letter or in your paper and let the reader determine why it's there. You need to defend that. It's your choice in adding that research. The reader may have another reason and appreciate it for their own reasons, but they should be aware of why you, as the writer, chose to put that there. So don't be afraid to go back and look at previous units. We've designed this course, just like all the other courses, so that they build upon one another. So by the time you're getting to week 6, you'll be able to use bits and pieces of all the previous units to make this particular assignment successful. As always, if you have any questions, you can reach out to your instructor. You can reach out to the Center for Academic Success. If you have any concerns about navigating the library's database collection, you can always go to the top of the page and under Student Resources, you're going to see the Traurig Online Library. If it asks you to log in, you're going to use the same login as you would use for Blackboard. You're going to want to focus on the center here to click on the image and start searching through the databases. If you hit a brick wall and you can't find anything, you can go ahead and chat with the librarian. And if they're online, you can give them as much information as possible so they can perhaps help you locate a source. They're not going to do the work for you, but they can help guide you in the right direction. And as it states in the rubric, when we grade these assignments, it says, did the student utilize the library's database collection? Because the research that's available here has been vetted and deemed appropriate for your assignment. There's, of course, different ways that you can navigate their collection. You can go to the A to Z database list. They also have APA resources, but you can scroll down as well. And you can even use that points of view reference source that we used previously. That's another great platform to check out. So if you're arguing the importance in your letter of applying more funding to preschools, then you can go into the points of view and see what people have to say about it. But ensure that you are citing your information and that it's accessible so your instructor can also see it. All right, have a great rest of your day and thank you for tuning in.